Which NFC South offense should you be fading right now? Do you need to be changing your tune about what the Arizona Cardinals are going to do for you for their skill position players this year? And what AFC West receiver is zooming up FFPC main event draft boards? Plus 26-time FFPC league champion Matt Stewart is going to swing on by to talk about Alvin Kamara's suspension, Deshaun Watson's regression, Courtland Sutton's ascension, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
The pressure, I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Farelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is indeed the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to holler at you about the Dolphins running back situation in the wake of the Devin Achane injury, Deebo Samuel versus Brandon Ayuk, and then 26-time FFPC league winner Matt Stewart is going to join us for a conversation about Javonte Williams, about Aaron Rodgers, Zach Ertz, and much more. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so. The show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. Always learn more about Farrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. And by the way, checking out the KFFSC right now, which I'm in the midst of a main event slow draft there, having the time of my life drafting against a lot of people who watch this show and tune in every single week. Make sure that you are registering for the main event, not only in Louisville and Cincinnati, which spots are getting scarce as I look at it right now. There's a lot of red on there. Only a few spots to draft live coming up in Cincinnati on the weekend of the 20th, August 20th. And then Louisville, which is the final weekend of August. Spots getting thin there as well. The main event online stuff is going on right now. Couple of different slow drafts that you can sign up for right now, 2-hour clock, 6-hour clock. And then more live stuff gets going Sunday night at 11 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're registering for that. That is the next draft that is going to be going off live at KFFSC.com. Email the show at the High Stakes Fantasy Football, at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, send them in now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer and mutual friend Rob. Let's welcome in the commissioner himself, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, and my good friend Farrell Elliott. Farrell, welcome in to the podcast tonight. So glad that you're joining me on a Thursday, on a night when we just watched the Texans and Patriots, and now we have the Vikings and Seahawks getting underway in just a few minutes.
Yes, excellent, Balky. Thursday night doubleheader, and there's no other way I would rather spend my Thursday night than talking to the football and fantasy football with you, Balky. I think as you hand out, boy, we have a guest tonight that. What a great resume of success that he's had in the FFPC. But I think we should brag about the fact I had our good mutual friend, Jimmy Williams from Louisville, Kentucky on the phone today. And Jimmy was telling me, he says, I got to get in some leagues with Balky because I got to get even with him. You took the prize from the Run to Daylight out of the clutches of Jimmy's hands a few years ago.
Yeah.
You have that beautiful trophy to go along with the $5,000 prize. And people tend to forget because nobody's talking about how great Balky is. So I will. People forget to believe and understand that the beard will hunt. And Balky, you are the man.
No, thank you so much. I derive all the power in my fantasy football arsenal from my facial hair, obviously. Sure. And if I do shave that off, then it's open season on me, Jimmy. So I'll be looking for you in my leagues. It's always fun to compete against you for sure. Speaking of the Seahawks tonight, we have by the way, I should mention this too. Before we get going, for the first time ever, the FFPC is offering 2 separate $1 million grand prizes, one in the FFPC main event, and then for the first time ever, the Fantasy Pros Championship. Just $350 to get into that, a $1 million grand prize. We got drafts going on tonight. I think there's one going on at the top of the hour. I'm going to be commissioning the midnight draft tonight as well. So make sure you're registering for both of those, main event and Fantasy Pros, at myffpc.com. We have the live main event going on right now as well. I think there's a few spots available in the 1 o'clock p.m. draft tomorrow. So make sure you're signing up for that. And of course, Dynasty, best ball tournaments, closed 12-team leagues, all going on at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends and enemies, and get notified every time we go live here. Seahawks and Vikings are about to go live in Seattle tonight. And let's start there, Farrell, tonight. Kenneth Walker's shoulder injury isn't anything serious, according to Pete Carroll. This according to Brady Henderson, who covers the Seahawks. Walker, although his injury is not serious, according to his head coach, hasn't practiced since the first day of training camp. According to the powers that be in Seattle, he is running at full speed. And in the next couple of days, could be as soon as tomorrow, he's going to be making, well, probably not tomorrow because they're playing tonight, but maybe Saturday, that he's going to start making on-field cuts, which is good. This is what you want to see. Although it is a shoulder injury, I don't know how violent it is for your shoulder when you're cutting with your feet, but it is what it is. The issue I want to bring up here tonight, Farrell, is the Seattle running back core between Walker and Charbonnet. I'm wondering if you think the distance between these two players is actually a little bit greater than it should be right now, or maybe it's a little closer than it should be. As I look at fantasymojo.com, remember to follow Darren on Twitter, Darren Armani, at FantasyMojo on Twitter, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes competition, the guy who hooked me up with this lovely Pros versus Joes hoodie that I'm sporting tonight. Thank you. If you are playing in the FFPC, I highly recommend that you subscribe to fantasymojo.com because it is worthwhile. Charbonnet, running back 37 at the 10:02. Kenneth Walker, 5:03 right now. Farrell, he's still going at running back 17. How much trepidation do you have about drafting Kenneth Walker in the early 5th round right now?
Absolutely none. And actually, both players are being underdrafted. It's these two guys are very interesting. You look at the scouting department at Seattle; they have drafted the same physical specimen. These guys are similarly built. They're very, very strong in their lowers. And we were big on Walker last year, Balky, as you recall.
Yep.
We were big on him. Nobody else was. I think he was in the 7th round. We're real big on Charbonnet too. Now, what's different about these players is Walker is a guy who really hits the hole with authority. He'll push people out of the way. He's a real get low, get mean running back. Charbonnet is more of a finesse player, even though he's not built that way. But what Charbonnet is he's a natural pass catcher. Walker is not a natural pass catcher, and I don't think he ever will be. Remember when you always had a good athlete that's a buddy, he could do everything, but you would play basketball and you would have that one guy that couldn't dribble or that one guy that couldn't shoot. He could do everything else, but there was one aspect. That's Walker. Although he did catch 8 passes against Tampa Bay last year in one game, but you add up his entire year, and it was barely 30. So what you had for a rookie Walker was 1,000 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns, and you're likely to get that again this year. What you get from Charbonnet is a lot of pass catching. He's a better pass catcher. He's probably a better blocker. What's interesting about him, he shares with a lot of big receivers the fact that he's a long strider. That's difficult in a running back to overcome. When a guy takes these long strides, it takes him a while to get going. So he's got to have the perfect hole to get through. NFL defenses are not as forgiving as the defenses he faced in college. But both these guys, they look similar. They fit the bill of what they want, and they both do different things. They'll both do it in this offense. Both these guys could be serviceable players. Walker is your big point scorer. Charbonnet is your flex position guy and your bye week start. Both of them will be very good fantasy scorers for us this year.
And Charbonnet technically not even being drafted as a third running back. He's being drafted as a high-end number 4 running back right now. Kenneth Walker smack dab into RB2 territory. So look at both those guys as potential values going forward. Maybe not as many values going over to the NFC South and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Greg Allman, who covers the Buccaneers for The Athletic, says that Baker Mayfield is going to be starting the first preseason game against the Steelers. Kyle Trask is going to start out first in the second preseason game against the New York Football Jets. Neither one of these guys have looked good in preseason, Farrell. And the question here is not necessarily, hey, should I be looking at Mayfield or Trask? The question is, what are you doing with Evans and Godwin? What are you doing with Rachaad White when it looks like this offense could be a long season in there down there in Tampa Bay, Farrell? Chris Godwin is a middle of the 6th-round pick. Mike Evans going around later in the middle of the 7th. You want to be in business with those players this year? Because I'm having a difficult time selling myself on drafting either one of these guys.
At least one of them, because you can't get that level of talent. And whatever this at that round in the draft, I don't think it's highly unusual. Evans was a 3rd rounder last year. So it was these guys. And so you say it's not last year, and you would be correct. But what it is whatever this offense is, it's going to go through those 2 players. And, I've made no secret of it on this show. I'm a Trask guy. I think that's where it should be. And if he wins the job, or when he wins the job, he will bring downfield accuracy. He's got a power release. There's a lot of things to like about what he can do with the ball in his hands, and that makes Evans a fantastic play. What his problem is like a lot of young players, it's accuracy in the short game. So that's what you need to look for in the preseason when he gets his start. If he can hit receivers, tight ends, if he can hit the short passes, then he's matured as a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of player that that I would really be excited about if I were going to draft Evans or Godwin, because Evans would be my guy here because he's the most to gain when this player takes the job away from Baker Mayfield. And, in Baker Mayfield's case, once again, if he's quarterback, the offense runs through these 2 guys. He will get them the ball sometimes. He might not get them the ball consistently. With Mayfield as a quarterback, I like Godwin better than Evans.
And at that point where they're going, Godwin in the 6th, Evans in the 7th, you're still on board with those values right there, right, Farrell?
I am. And that's, yes, definitely.
Okay. And just not loading them up in the same league, right?
Yeah, you don't load these guys up in the same league. But if I watch Mayfield and I don't like what I see in Mayfield in the preseason, then I'm going to elevate Evans. Evans is going to become a bigger target for me.
Speaking of weird quarterback situations, if you had Clayton Tune on your High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour bingo card tonight, congratulations. Scratch it off right now because we're talking about him. Greg Rosenthal from the NFL Network said that there's a chance that Tune could start games for the Cardinals this season. Now, the way that that's worded, to me, it's maybe not news, but keep in mind that Clayton Tune, along with David Blau, Jeff Driscoll, and Colt McCoy, all these guys have been getting first-team reps with the Cardinals right now. And Dan Graziano, who covers the NFL for ESPN, said a few weeks ago that Tune is actually a really good fit to the Cardinals offense, and his mobility is going to help him, maybe be the guy in Arizona till Kyler Murray gets healthy, at least more so than Colt McCoy. Tomorrow night, the Cardinals take on the Broncos, and obviously there's a non-zero chance that Clayton Tune could be the starting quarterback for the Cardinals this year. This is not a Clayton Tune question, Farrell. This is a question about Marquise Brown. It's a question about Zach Ertz. It's a question about Trey McBride, Rondale Moore, all these Cardinals receivers there. How are we handling the Cardinals receiver situation when more and more it looks like not only will Kyler Murray not be playing the majority of the season, he might not be playing at all, and we might be looking at Clayton Tune as the starting quarterback for Arizona.
It creates a whole spectrum of possibilities in that wide receiver room. And you know what? If Clayton Tune comes into a preseason game and does what he can do, those receivers will sit around in the receiver room. They'll look at each other and say, hey, we got a quarterback. And it creates, I have not been high on any of the Arizona Cardinals. What this would do would be elevate not only Ertz, but McBride, it would elevate both tight ends. So it's not a Clayton Tune question, but we ought to add, everybody's going, who in the hell is Clayton Tune? Clayton Tune played at University of Houston. He is mobility. No, but what scouts will tell you now, when they see a player like Clayton Tune, they'll say, well, he's not an athlete, but he has mobility within the pocket. Think Eli Manning. Remember in the Super Bowl when Eli Manning wouldn't go down, and then the number 12 made the catch with the ball on his helmet. That's the kind of thing to make things happen. This kid, Clayton Tune, is probably more accurate all over the field than a lot of young quarterbacks that you talked about, and especially that bunch that you mentioned who are out in Arizona. If this guy gets the thing, you can expect TDs and bundles. The old scouts would say he throws a friendly ball, which means that, the ball is going to be somewhere in your catching radius if you're a wide receiver, and he's going to throw it with touch. Go ahead and catch it. That's going to help great pass catchers like Ertz. It's going to help guys that run the post route like Brown. There's a lot of things here to like about this quarterback with this team. So I would begin to look at Arizona Cardinals much differently.
Dominic Guzzetti has a question in the chat, and he says, is Connor the only Arizona player worth drafting this year? To me, when you're talking about like a Fantasy Pros Championship, FFPC main event, 12 teams, 20 rounds, you got to look at everybody there. And yeah, I think Connor's worth drafting. I still like Marquise Brown. He's going in the 7th round. I can get on board with that. I can definitely get on board with Rondale Moore in the 12th or the 13th round for sure. I actually like that. In fact, I think I just took him in Kentucky recently as well. And then if you wanted, if you're nasty, Michael Wilson in the 19th round, okay. Not my favorite target, but I can see it. And then obviously McBride and Ertz. We're going to get into those guys later on in the show. But is Connor the only Arizona player worth drafting? No, I don't think he is. I think there's more value there, as Farrell just alluded to, even regardless of the quarterback. Matt Stewart is coming up here tonight, the 26-time FFPC champ. We're going to bring him in a couple minutes. Before we get to him, I do feel like we need to talk about Sky Moore here, because Jesse Newell, who covers the Chiefs, said that he has been out there for every single first-team snap when the Chiefs have been going with 2 receivers. It's him and it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That means those guys are running ahead of Richie James, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, all these Chiefs receivers, Kadarius Toney, all these Chiefs receivers, although Tony's hurt right now for what it's worth. But it sounds like Sky Moore, Sky might be the limit for Moore this year, Farrell. He's being drafted pretty late, although he has been shooting up draft boards lately. He has now passed Kadarius Toney as the top receiver drafted in Kansas City. 6 receivers are being drafted in the Fantasy Pros Championship in 20 rounds. James and Ross late, Rashee Rice, Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the middle, Toney in the late 9th, and now Sky Moore is now a mid-9th round pick as wide receiver 45. Farrell, he's catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. Don't necessarily see a big-time threat from any of those other Chiefs receivers. I can get on board with taking a stab on Sky Moore in the mid-9th round.
I can too, and I'm surprised that he has been deflated, I guess would be the right word. He's and no one can figure it out, and so our drafters that are risk averse are responsible for him being in the 9th round. And that's, if you watch the Super Bowl last year, that probably shouldn't be what you should do. He's got the type of play that looks like he's going to elevate his game in this season. And remember, Juju Smith-Schuster is gone. There's 78 passes from Smith-Schuster that he caught in this mixed bag of wide receivers in this offense that are no longer there. Somebody's going to step up and catch similarly to that. And if you get those kind of numbers in a player with Moore's explosiveness and athleticism, that's
there you go. I knew you'd get there. Yep,
just a little more caffeine, I'll be okay. You get that ball, into an athletics player's hands. It's a world of possibilities opening up. Yeah, this player should be drafted higher.
Yeah, and I think he will be. I said yesterday, I thought if this keeps up, 7th round, maybe even 6th round for Sky Moore. But it's got to continue on this trajectory, which as of right now, doesn't seem like it's not going to. Let's bring in our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Been playing fantasy football for a long time, and actually a long-time competitor in the FFPC. Over the years, he's earned 26 league championships in the FFPC. He's cashed thousands upon thousands. I was going to add it up. I said, the heck with it. I'm wasting my time here. It's way too much money. Let's just bring him in like this. He's really good at fantasy football at the very highest level. Please welcome into the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, making his debut, it is Matt Stewart. Matt, welcome in, man.
How you doing, Eric? How you doing, Farrell? Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you, buddy.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know it's a weird night. It's Thursday. We don't normally do the show on Thursday. We're playing a little catch up here, and there's football on. So the fact that we get to pick your brain tonight is certainly a treat. When you are not winning all these leagues in the FFPC, Matt, can you tell us what you're doing for a living?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a big family, wife, 3 kids. All the kids play travel sports, so a lot of lacrosse, a lot of soccer, travel, football, high school. Beyond that, I lead a federal IT sales team. So I manage a federal IT sales team for a living. And that's all, when it's not football season, I'm just wishing it was football season, because this is obviously a big hobby of mine that I definitely appreciate and love playing on FFPC.
Oh, we love having you. For sure.
I'm from the South, and I need you to slow down a little bit and let me get keeping up with you. What did you say you do for a living?
I manage a federal IT sales team, a lot of cloud, a lot of storage, boring things that nowhere near as fun as fantasy football. So I don't want to put you guys to sleep.
I'm going to look that stuff up after the show. You would never put me to sleep with your resume. Fantastic. Right. Donkey says, long-time player. I look at, he started when he was 14 with a fake ID. How in the hell is he a long-time player? So, look, talk to me about a long-time player in the NFL. I want to get right to it because Mr. Jessel Jones just said he's really good. Wanted to be really good at fantasy football, so I'm here to learn. You're the kind of guy to learn from. Okay, Alvin Kamara. Balky and I got it right. People were saying 6 games. We said back in the spring we think it's overblown. We think maybe 2 or 3 games. It comes back as 3 games. Where do you draft him now? Do you draft him at value of the 6th and 7th round, which Balky informs me that's where Darren Armani informs us that he is going? Are you satisfied with that? And what would be your strategy if you were going to target Kamara? What would be your strategy of how you would build running backs around him to get you through those first 3 weeks?
Well, I think you summed it up. I mean, if my build, if I have a quality, first or second back, I'm willing to go after Kamara in that 6th, 7th round. Really in the 6th round. I mean, prior to the 3 game suspension coming out, I was seeing him go. I mean, I have him on plenty of my teams already this year. I was getting him in the 9th round, routinely.
Wow.
And I've seen him move up. I've seen him go as high as the 5th round recently. Mm-hmm. That's a little rich for me right now, but I would say mid to late 6th. I'm comfortable, but again, it really entirely depends on your build, what you've done in the first 5 rounds to be really comfortable and happy with that strategy.
You think about a fresh leg, Alvin Kamara coming in to the, I really like the sounds of that, for what you might get for your regular season. It's pretty fascinating.
Absolutely.
And Matt, I think the other question here that we should bring up, and this is more of a Saints running back question, but they just had Kareem Hunt in for a visit. Are you at all concerned with not necessarily Kamara because, obviously we know he's missing the first 3 games, but what do you think the Saints think of Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams, 2 other running backs that are being drafted in the Fantasy Pros Championship and the FFPC main event right now? Would you be nervous about drafting either of those guys knowing that the Saints just worked out Hunt, although they didn't sign him?
Absolutely. I mean, we heard great things about Kendre Miller. We know what Jamal Williams can do. We've seen that for years upon years. With only a 3 game suspension, I was really surprised that they didn't only bring him in, they tried to sign him. And he left Indy without a contract, so he may be going back to New Orleans. So that again is why, for me, really ideally late 6th is where I would look for Kamara at this point in time. I just think there are other options in that same tier that are safer to give me points. And if they're bringing in Kareem Hunt, obviously Saints know more than we do, and it is a concern. But yeah, I'll roll the dice in the late 6th. Yeah,
and I think that's a smart play there, especially again, depending upon how your team build is at that point. Yep. I think that could be a really smart decision. I'm not seeing in my opinion, I'm not seeing a lot of smart decisions being made about Javonte Williams. No. This is a guy that I was I took over a dynasty team, and I was ticked off because my number 1 running back was Williams, and I didn't really have a whole lot of depth after that. I'm like, well, this is going to be a mulligan for him. And then I hear that he's going to start, a few weeks ago, Sean Payton says, yeah, he's going to start playing at training camp right away. And then I hear Sean Payton's going to be playing him in preseason games. And I'm like, this guy is your meal ticket here. You only have Samaje Perine behind him. So he must be making great strides in an injury that was really, really bad last year. And so then I'm like, okay, Javonte Williams, here we go, wheels up, right? And I look at him, he's finally, the last time I brought Javonte Williams up, he was a 7th round pick. Now based on ADP, he's entered the 6th round at least as running back 23. I don't get it. I see this guy as a value in every single draft, and I'm scooping him up wherever I can. At that price, Matt, I see nothing but upside with Williams. What am I missing here? Why has this guy not vaulted up to the 5th or maybe even the 4th round?
Yeah, Eric, I think you're teeing me up here. I think you know how many teams I actually have him on.
I might.
The reality is he's a great example. Are you taking in the mid-6? Are you taking Alvin Kamara with 3 game suspension and all that competition, and they're still bringing in additional competition, or a much younger running back who, by all measures, is ready to go right now. He's going to play in the preseason. I don't believe Samaje Perine. They may ease him in a little bit. We've heard this from multiple outlets, right? They may ease him in, but at the end of the day, as that offense goes, it's how Javonte Williams goes. They upgraded the offensive line, McGlinchey from San Fran. They upgraded the right guard. The line's much improved. If he's fully ready to go, I'm taking him 10 out of 10 times over Alvin Kamara. It's not close. So yeah. I think by the time we get around to the bulk of our main event drafts, I think you see him higher than the 6th round. I think you see him, probably as early as the late 4th or early 5th. So right now, if I can get him 10 out of 10 times in the 6th round, I'm doing it.
And hell, he still may be a value there, guys. Balky, don't
Absolutely.
you love it when fantasy football players talk about offensive linemen? I mean, nothing makes me happier, Matt Stewart.
Absolutely. Even when they had Melvin Gordon, who was decent out of the backfield catching the ball, they used Javonte in that capacity much more than Melvin Gordon. So, he's a 3-down back, and can't wait to see how he does.
Our Jessel Jones asked a very important question. Don't you think Peyton will have his signature split backfield there? And I'd say, Jessel, there's 450, maybe 500 carries in that split backfield, so that's okay. And Williams will get his. Are you coming to Planet Hollywood September 7th through 9th, 6th through 9th?
Yeah,
live?
I've never done an in-person main event draft. Done plenty of main event drafts. I do plan to do one in the future, but not this year. It's just been crazy. My oldest is going to the University of Kentucky, so he's leaving to go away to college. The other 2 are still very, very busy. In fact, right now, I'm at Deep Creek Lake in Maryland with the entirety of my family, as well as some really good friends. And my youngest has 6 completely wild, best buddies with him right now. So if you hear anything or see anything behind me, I apologize in advance. Hopefully you don't. They know I'm doing this. So, but yeah, it's
you would be the kind of guy that we want in the room. Now, where's home for you?
Northern Virginia, Loudoun County.
Okay, well, very good. Because the contest I run is known as the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. The cat is out of the bag. You have a Wildcat in Lexington, and you have let us know that you'll be coming to Kentucky. So we got to get this worked out.
I want to do one of those as well. Very familiar.
Before we do, I want to talk to you about something. If you were to show up here or to show up at Planet Hollywood, you would meet one of the coolest guys that Balky and I count as our dear friend, John Anderson. He is his email says Ultimate Browns fan 32, and he's going to be sitting on the edge of his seat awaiting your answer for this. He'll leave Planet Hollywood early because he'll have to get home and go to the Cleveland Browns game where he's been to every one in like the last 30 years. So tell John Anderson if Deshaun Watson is going to become the Deshaun Watson that we all expect this year, and what in your mind that does with all of the other players that are present in that Cleveland offense.
Yeah, they've upgraded the wide receiver room. They added Elijah Moore, added a good rookie from Tennessee. Obviously, they have Amari Cooper. They have a good tight end room. The line's exceptional. Nobody can forget about Nick Chubb. So, the defenses are going to have to respect the run of Cleveland each and every game. So Deshaun Watson, for me, has been one of my, unless I'm willing to invest in one of the big five, big three in the top 3 rounds, pretty much 100% of the time. I've seen Allen fall to the early 4th a couple of times. I think that's happened in the draft, here today. Great pick. But unless you're willing to spend a top, 3 pick, 3-round pick on one of those big 3, or then go after Lamar or Joe Burrow, probably somewhere in the late 4th to early 5th. Deshaun Watson in the late 7th, early 8th. This is a guy we've seen consistently deliver 25 fantasy points per game. I haven't seen Sunshine do that. There's a number of guys that we're valuing more so than Deshaun Watson. We've never seen it. I'm not saying they're not going to do it. We know that stars emerge and he may take the next step and he may be that guy. Mm-hmm. But I really believe Deshaun Watson has the probability, not the chance, the probability to do that this year.
Yeah.
Matt, continuing on our Cleveland Browns conversation here, Dominic Gazzetti in the YouTube chat right now, he thinks the gap between Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore is way too big, ADP wise. And if Moore can do what he did his rookie year, that could be huge value. Now, as I look at the ADP right now for Fantasy Mojo between Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, you're looking at Amari Cooper as a mid 4th round pick. You're looking at Elijah Moore as a late 8th round pick. Does that say to you, like, okay, I like Cooper, but man, the value on Moore is so much better. Should these guys be going closer together in drafts?
I think so. I do think so. I obviously Cooper's still the one there. He's going to be the most targeted receiver, at least, by all accounts. He's going to be the most targeted receiver. But I'm also hearing that Elijah Moore in 2 wide receiver sets is looking like he's going to overtake DPJ. So that means a lot of targets for a late 8th rounder. And to that point, I've seen him plenty of times slip into the mid 9th. So yeah, it should be closer.
Dizzle pointing out too, he said, well, Cooper is much safer, right? Which I totally agree with. I think that goes without saying, but you're also paying a premium for that safety. There's a lot of insurance on that Cooper pick over Elijah Moore. It might be worth it too. The other thing I want to bring up in the YouTube chat right now, Matt, this is from Matt Zimmer, actually. He wants to know, are you ever a 0 RB guy? Have you ever done drafts like that? Where do you stand on the 0 RB philosophy?
I'm not going to say that I don't occasionally do it, but I feel like in your average 12-team draft today, at least on the FFPC platform, there are so many guys, so many league owners, managers who go 0 RB. For me to follow suit and do that, I'm letting better value at the running back position pass just to go 0 RB. Do running backs get hurt more often? Sure, they absolutely do. But I'm not letting a Saquon or an Austin Eckler or a Bijan get by me for, I'm trying to think, for a receiver just because he's a receiver. I'm trying to think. I was going to say Jalen Waddle. That's not really a good answer because I love Jalen Waddle. I think as long as Tua can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a great player this year as well. But no, I'm not a fan of that, honestly. I do go heavy on receiver, but 0 RB is not normally the case for me.
What about we all saw Hard Knocks this week I shouldn't say we all did. I finally did. I didn't see it the first night. I watched it last night. And I got to tell you, Aaron Rodgers, the way that it's edited, looks like he could be the greatest human being ever to walk this planet. Not the greatest quarterback ever, greatest human being ever to walk the planet. Obviously, people are so jazzed up, and God bless Jets fans. Why wouldn't you be? If I was a Jets fan, I'd be jazzed up as well. But I want to ask you about the actual fantasy output for Aaron Rodgers in New York. I'm a little surprised he's going as late in drafts as he is right now, Matt. And I look at the mojo on him. This is a situation where he's being drafted at the 10-11 turn as quarterback 16. I honestly expected him to be going higher, and I think there's some value in drafting Aaron Rodgers there. Don't you agree?
100%. He looks rejuvenated. It's funny how a next year can actually completely change the perspective, the outlook, the reputation of a player. He was disgruntled in Green Bay. Looked like he didn't want to be playing. Clearly was not. He was never there for any of the offseason stuff. He's been there every step of the the process with the Jets. He's got Garrett Wilson. I do like Alan Lazard this year as well in terms of like a deep, probably a wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 3 on a fantasy team. So yeah, I'm in on Aaron Rodgers. I have him a ton as well as a QB2.
Have you been drafting him as a starter anywhere, or is he always a backup for you?
If I go really deep at both running back, receiver, and actually tight end as well, especially in tight end premium formats like FFPC, there are times where maybe a Dak Prescott's my starting quarterback. I can easily come back, like you said, in the 12th round and get Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
I feel much more confident and secure having both those guys than just one or the other.
Matt, you got too many kids and you're playing too many teams to sit around trying to. How many times you would change your lineup on Saturday night and Sunday morning between Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers? You will go virtually crazy. I would not recommend doing that. But if you guys are high on Rodgers, and I'll tell you, Balky and Matt, how I watched the show. It was on, and I was doing business on the phone. I was watching the images, and I could just tell the show was going to be interesting because how it was shot differently. And that facility where the Jets are, there's a lot of reasons that players come in there, not as famous as Aaron Rodgers, but sign free agent deals because they're very, very excited about being there. And, I want to talk with you. If we love Rodgers, we got to love some of the guys around him. So let's talk about the wide receivers that are traveling with him, Aaron Lazard and Alan Lazard. And if we didn't talk about Randy Cobb, who won't be drafted, but if we didn't talk about Randy Cobb, Two-Packer would be mad at us.
Yeah.
So what do you think about those guys that are tagging along and going to be part of the new Aaron Rodgers in New York?
Yeah, I mean, Lazard looks to be clearly the number 2 there. So I can't remember his last year stats off the top of my head: 800 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. I'm ballparking. Balky, I'm sure you have that somewhere at your fingertips. I don't see a big difference in terms of his production in New York than what he had in Green Bay.
Okay,
but that's for a wide receiver 4 on a fantasy team. That's solid. He's catching high 60s, low 70s balls. Garrett Wilson's the unquestioned. The guy's a freak. He's the unquestioned one there. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to gravitate and really focus on him, much like he did Devontae. He knows where his talent's at, but I think Lazard's a good value. I mean, he goes late, so you're not spending anything premium in terms of draft capital to get your hands on Alan Lazard. Randall Cobb, I have probably zero interest in, but he's definitely a safety blanket of Aaron Rodgers as well.
When you get into Lexington with your do not say you have no interest in Randall Cobb. Just always say yes.
That's fair.
That's fair. You should get Randall Cobb at all costs. Make sure you get him in all your fantasy teams because we want you to get out of Kentucky alive. So you gotta be all about Randall Cobb.
Matt,
right there, Farrell. I completely forgot he was Big Blue Nation alumni. So it's,
yes,
slipped my mind.
Matt, to your point on
he's been
Lazard.
playing for 100 years.
Yeah, it does seem that way. We came into the league young too,
right.
And people forget he went to Houston for a little bit, and then he came back, and now he's in New York.
Jimmy Williams, who we spoke of earlier, Balky, has joined us in the chat room.
Yeah, which is great. And he said
he was not recruited for the show.
No, he was not. He's just popping in, and he's glad that since your kid is going to UK that you talked about Randall Cobb tonight. Yep. So there you go on that. Maybe there'll be a Benny Snell discussion later on. I don't know. I can't.
There we go.
Anything. Yeah,
he's a hell of a back in Kentucky too. So
yeah, he was. Yeah, Matt. To your point on Lazard's stats, he had career highs in both catches and yards last year. 60 catches, 788 yards. That was his first season without Devontae Adams. He's got a player that Aaron Rodgers is rightfully or wrongfully comparing to Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson in New York this year. How that shakes out, I don't know. But I do know that Rodgers leaned on Lazard, and Garrett Wilson's been dinged up already. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to put the injury hex on anybody this early in the season, but I'll just say that. Okay, so Farrell just asked you about Alan Lazard. Let me ask you about Cortland Sutton, a guy that the reports have been very positive about him so far in training camp. However, those same people, beat reporters that are talking about Courtland Sutton, they're also talking about Jerry Jeudy still being the number one there, which is significant in that offense. And if we look at the ADP for Courtland Sutton, baking all that into it, he is going at wide receiver 47 in the late 9th round. That's where Courtland Sutton is right now. Based on what you know about him, Matt, based on what you've seen in all the drafts you've done, do you think that's too late for Courtland Sutton and FFPC players should be drafting him higher than that?
I like that he's going that late. And, to your point, I have him plenty as well. I've gotten him as late as the 11th. And he's going to have opportunity. Opportunity really is king. I don't think he, there's been a lot of reports about he's studying Michael Thomas's role for the Saints, and he's going to be that big slot and this, that, and the other. I think that's absolutely the ceiling. That's a perfect storm if it happens. But either way, as the wide receiver 2 in that offense, he's going to see enough targets to make him a value in the 9th round, much less the 10th or the 11th, which I'm sure a lot of these listeners have actually gotten him there too.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost my mind, fellas. Balky, will you read the quote from the Dizzle?
He said, Sutton getting camp hype, and then he said, even I, a Sutton hater, thinks that's a value, as Sutton is going in the late 9th round. I never thought I'd see it today.
No, I
never thought I'd see it today.
Dizzle went pro Sutton with anything. And I got to tell you guys, it's obvious. The 9th round is just packed with talent. If you're playing in a basement league, you should trade all your early picks and try. That's where apparently that's what we want to talk about is the 9th round. Go ahead.
To that point, I mean, the guy that everybody assumed was going to be the number 3, he's done for the year, Tim Patrick. So
yeah.
I'm not saying Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma can't step in and be a capable, but he's a rookie. We don't know what we're getting there.
A lot of people like him, even better than it. Their receiver their number 3 guy may not even be on the roster yet. I don't know.
Oh,
let me talk to you about some guys that are going to be drafted even later. And we just informed everybody who Clayton Tune is, if you didn't know who Clayton Tune was before the show. So now we want to talk about the tight ends. Anytime you get a rookie quarterback, this classic drop back passer, and that's what I'm hoping we'll get. Clayton Tune is 6'4". I love those tight ends, especially one like Zach Ertz. Are you separating the tight ends at Arizona, or are they of such value? Maybe Balky will tell us where they're going in the draft. Are they of such value that you would take them both as late as I think they're going, which is Balky? Is it 15? Is that about where?
Yeah, we're looking at the last 3 days in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Trey McBride, 14-10, so end of the 14th round is tight end 24. Zach Ertz is tight end 35. He's going in the early 18th. So Ertz is basically free. McBride is, I don't want to say he's free, but he's a late 14th round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I don't pay a lot of draft capital on my tight ends, I consistently end up with Zach Ertz, and I'm getting him in 18th, 19th. I'm sure I've gotten him in the 20th a few times. If he's ready week 1, I strongly prefer him over McBride. I don't think it's going to be I don't see, even if they're running a lot of 12 personnel, I see Ertz getting more targets. He's a better route runner. He is the confidence of everybody in that locker room. He looked great last year before he got hurt. McBride was on the team last year. He was a rookie. Now, I do expect McBride to be better, but if you're talking about McBride in the 14th versus Ertz at the earliest in the 18th, and if you're telling me there's a good chance he's ready week 1, it's a no-brainer for me personally. And people have different perspectives, opinions. I'm going Ertz every time.
Okay.
And is it because of the body of work that you like Ertz better? If he's healthy and ready to go.
I've seen him do it as recently as last year, meaning he was, for the games he played last year, even in the FFPC format where it's tight end premium, he got me by with plenty of mid-teen point games, and that'll get it done if I'm strong at receiver, running back, quarterback, everywhere else. So yeah, I think he has the potential to be one of the absolute best values out there.
I see what you did as a broadcast professional there, Balky. That was pretty slick.
Well, I do what I can.
Let
let's keep it going with this because we got a bunch of we got a couple more tight end questions for you here from the YouTube chat, Matt. And I'll go. I'm gonna get back up to God. I forget who posted the original question. Oh, Kyle. Kyle, we're gonna get to your question in a second. I'm gonna go to Dom's question first. We're talking about Sutton, but let's talk about Dulcich here because the reasons we like drafting Sutton, obviously ADP, the fact that he's got the opportunity to break out this season. Dom likes drafting Dulcich. Right now in Fantasy Pros drafts, Matt, you're looking at Greg Dulcich as the tight end 14 at the 10:05. And I don't believe Troutman has – no, I don't see Troutman in here at all. So you're looking at Dulcich as the only Broncos tight end drafted. How do you feel about him in the mid-10th?
Love him as well. Again, unless I'm spending premium draft capital on one of the big names, Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson – obviously there's a handful after that as well. That's typically one of my targets when I'm tight end empty and I get to about that range. 10th round, I'm looking at Greg Dulcich. Okay, so let me ask you this, and this is something that the Dizzle just posted in the chat room. Sean Payton already said this, that the run blocking that Troutman does so well actually has him listed on the first unofficial depth chart of the season for the Broncos. He has Sean Payton has Troutman ahead of Dulcich. How much stock do you put into that? Does that concern you at all, or is it too early for you in the preseason to be concerned about depth charts? For me, it's too early. Sean Payton, he's done this when he was with the Saints. He sets his depth charts. A lot of times, it's for motivational purposes. There may be something that he's not doing well that Payton expects better out of him. Mm-hmm. Put him number 2 on the depth chart. For me, it's not close in terms of the talent levels between the two guys. Troutman, I mean, he was never featured in New Orleans, but I saw enough of him to know, compared to what I saw from Dulcich in Denver last year, I'm taking Greg Dulcich. And still in the 10th round there too. And as we know from Joe Del Zanero, Baker Boy, there's no such thing as a bad draft pick, the 10th rounder on. Let's go back up to Kyle's question here. Rookie tight ends historically do not have great rookie years for fantasy football. Is there any rookie tight end that you see this year, Matt, that could buck that trend? Think about Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer. I'll throw in Luke Musgrave in there as well. I mean, there's plenty of tight ends to choose from this year. Could be a really good tight end class. Sam Laporta, for God's sake, in the NFC North. That's another guy to be looking at here. What about you? Are there any rookie tight ends that you've been targeting this year? Yeah, none of those guys are expensive, so none of them scare me. But the last one you mentioned is the one I'm most interested in, and that's Laporta. But by all reports we're getting, he looks like the starter from day one. Jared Goff's always utilized the tight end. Mm-hmm. They don't have many reliable targets in that offense until Jameson Williams comes back. You got, outside of their elite slot guy, I'm not sure where he's throwing the ball. Is it really going to be Marvin Jones? I think Laporta has to be a factor in the offense. I'm not expecting 1,000-yard, Kyle Pitts rookie season or anything like that. But if you're hoping for 700 yards and half dozen touchdowns, I think that's realistic. And it's realistic as well. Go ahead, Farrell.
Well, Balky, Joseph Gilliam just showed up in the chat room. We're going to say hello to Joe, but I will tell you this. This goes back to Kyle T's question. And Matt hit it right on the nose. You're not drafting these rookie tight ends to play for you until about week 8. And then you're going to get them on the field, because you go look at some of the game logs of the rookie tight ends that have had modest first years catching passes, and then you look at what they did for you at the end of the season. That's when these guys begin to get it. That's when they get in the mix, and that's when some of the older players that may be hanging on at the position begin to hurt a little bit. There's a question in here: is Kelsey too old? Never. But all players that have played a lot of football have a tendency to get banged up, have a tendency to get hurt. So you're going to rely on the young player a little more. And some of these players will be relied on early on, and then they will get into a rhythm with their quarterback, with their offense, gain the offensive coordinator's trust, and then you'll have a great end-of-the-year ball player. So as Matt says, you're not spending much for them and you're betting in for not the future. That we're not playing dynasty here, but you're betting into the November future, and you want to have emerging players at that time, and that's the skill set that you've got with these players.
Matt, a couple of emails here that I want to get to you from some viewers. The first one's from Ron in Cairo, Ohio. Hey, Matt, which Miami running back have you been targeting this season? Thanks, man. Thank you for the email, Ron in Cairo, Ohio. Yeah, there's three of them really to look at there. You're looking at Mostert, you're looking at A-Chain, you're looking at Jeff Wilson. A-Chain and Wilson have both gotten hurt. I don't know if any of those injuries are serious enough to bleed in to the start of the regular season. And quite frankly, if you look at the ADP of the Miami running backs here, you're not breaking the bank, even on A-Chain, a guy that I thought people were really reaching on in rookie drafts this year for dynasty purposes. You're looking at Miami, A-Chain, 1009, Wilson's at the 1304, Mostert 1312. I mean, these are all guys that are going after the single-digit rounds. I don't know, Matt. You've done a bunch of drafts. Have you been kind of sprinkling your Dolphins running back shares, or have you been targeting one of these three more so than the other two?
Honestly, great question. As it relates to that room, that running back room in Miami, go reverse ADP. So Mostert 1, Wilson 2, A-Chain. Now, I like A-Chain as a player. Now, he's about the size of one of my kids. So his role, he's never going to be a bell cow. He's exceptionally fast. We know that. He moves well. He's elusive. But they have to have a plan for him. So volume, opportunity, he's not built for a lot of that. And that concerns me. 10th round's not excessive, to your point. Anything 10th or later, you're not wasting a pick. But at the same time, there are guys I prefer over him when I'm drafting in the 10th round.
The other email here, Matt, for you is from Wayne in Newark, New Jersey. Are you Team Debo or Team Ayuk this year in San Francisco? Wayne, thank you for watching. Thank you for the email. This is a good question because I don't necessarily think you have to decide between these two because their ADP is different. But I know people will decide between the two, as in if they get Debo Samuel in the early 4th round, which is where he's going right now as the 18th receiver off the board, they're probably not targeting Brandon Ayuk as the wide receiver 30 in the mid 6th round where he's going right now. How do you fall in on this? I don't even know if you have a strong opinion on this, quite frankly, Matt.
I love both those guys. I have plenty of shares of both on my teams. If you're telling me I know I can have Ayuk in the 6th as opposed to Debo in the early 4th, probably Ayuk. But I'm a big fan of Debo as well. I think Debo also has the distinct possibility to well outperform his 4th round ADP. So, Granted, Ayuk coming off his first 1,000+ yard year, fantastic receiver as long as Purdy's ready, good to go, provide some stability at the quarterback position, and they have depth that there now as well. So even if he does get hurt, he can't start the season. They're not dead in the water. I like both those guys. I'm a big fan of both. It's not really an answer. I'm not telling you. But I guess if you're saying Debo early 4th, it's Debo late 4th, maybe Debo. If it's Debo early 4th or Ayuk somewhere in the 6th round, probably saying Ayuk.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and that's fine. Listen, when you're drafting more than one team, these answers are all acceptable. Farrell's a little bit more stringent on our guest answers when it comes to stuff like this, especially for this final question, Matt. He lays out the parameters for this. I wash my hands of it, but I'm very interested in hearing the answer.
I am too, because we've got a guy here that knows how to really separate players, and he mentioned the quarterback there, and I think you're spot on. Both those players are going to outperform their draft position based on the quarterback. Because quarterback is the real thing at 49ers. And Balky, is he even being drafted? Is anybody drafted Purdy?
Talking about Purdy? Yeah, he's come back up now. So Purdy, you're looking at in the Fantasy Pros Championship, a guy who wasn't being drafted probably a month or so ago has now entered the Fantasy Pros Championship probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 to 14 days, maybe 17 days ago. He is now going off the board as an early 14th round pick.
Wow.
So people are scooping him up as quarterback 22.
Blowing up. Yeah, well, congratulations to everybody that got him at a bargain price. So, Matt, I want to hear from you. You're a positive guy. I like your vibe, but I want to hear one guy that you just will not have on your team, maybe at any price, and where you just wouldn't trust to play him. And then I want to hear your sleeper, because I think you've got some youthful – I think you've got a good eye on the younger players in the league and maybe some of the veterans within new positions that might have a chance to shine. So a guy you won't touch, and then your sleeper of the year.
Okay, so I'll premise it by saying there's nobody I won't touch at the right price.
No, you can't get away with that, because
that's just a preface. It's just a preface, Farrell. I happen to agree with them there.
Yeah.
That's not the question. Well, we have to treat him as a hostile witness now. Well, sir, the judge directs you to answer the question.
So I apologize. That was probably bad phrasing.
No apology is necessary, but an answer is. Yes.
There are two guys that you will not find on many, if any, of my teams, and those guys, I love them both as prospects. But this year, based upon the scheme, where they're at, and where they're being drafted, most importantly, you're not going to find on my teams. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. That's Jackson Smith and Jigba. So those two guys, for different reasons, Detroit runs a power-heavy scheme. They brought in, they paid David Montgomery very nicely. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get the goal line touches. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a hell of a player in the NFL for a long time. But where he's going, he's generally going in the third round. That's too high. For me, there's better value. I do have him a couple places, but I got him a little bit later. And I mean a couple places. And Bulky, I don't want to say how many drafts I've already done. And that's embarrassing to an extent.
I would say you've done more than two. That's appropriate to say.
I've definitely done more than two. And then Jigba, again, I love him coming out of Ohio State. I just think with the top two guys, top two receivers there right now, and DK and Lockett, a team that loves to run the ball, a team that added Zach Charbonnet to go along with Kenneth Walker, they're gonna be a run heavy team. And I just don't see enough opportunity for him to justify where he's going either. So those are two guys I'm not really touching.
I like that.
What about Matt, in your more than two drafts that you've done? Do you find yourself when you get past the 10th, 11th round, do you find yourself grabbing a lot of the same players because you like them? Like, is there one or two guys that you've been scooping up late as a late round sleeper?
I mean, we talked about a couple of my favorite values in terms of beyond the 10th round. Aaron Rodgers, again, is a big favorite of mine to take. And I think you mentioned his ADP was somewhere around that 11, 12 turn. I've routinely gotten him later than that, so I feel like I'm even happier with those picks. But I'm a big fan there, and I tend to take him if I don't have one of the big five, and I really want to shore up that position. Quarterback, there's a lot of depth. But at the same time, if you don't have a guy who can realistically get you 20 plus points, you're at a significant disadvantage.
You so eloquently said it, but again, I must object. We've talked about Rodgers earlier in the show. I need a new sleeper. I need you. The people that are here at 10:57 want some new news. And
well, can't give you Zach Ertz either.
I need a new sleeper.
Yeah, Matt. Maybe I can help on this as well. So if I'm looking at your teams right now, which I may or may not be doing, what about a guy? Can you tell us a little bit about? Let's go to Indianapolis. Farrell knows this team. What about a guy like not Josh Downs, not Michael Pittman? What about a guy like Alec Pierce? What do you think about him in his sophomore year?
I like it. He's going to be on the field a ton. He's got a rookie quarterback, so there's pitfalls, there's caveats. There are reasons to not be hugely positive on it, but at the same time, good rookie year, very good receiver. He's going to be on the field the entire game, so that's a great call. And thanks for bailing me out on that one.
You're very welcome. I lied. There is one more question we're going to do tonight. It's from Jacob Ander in the YouTube chat, and I feel like we have to bring this up every single week until we get a resolution on it. What's the panic level on Jacobs not playing week 1 from 1 to 10? 1, you're not concerned about it at all. 10, oh my goodness, I'm not touching Josh Jacobs in drafts at all this year. Matt Stewart, where do you fall in on the panic level for Josh Jacobs?
I'm at a 7.5 right now. I am concerned.
Okay.
I'm very concerned. Josh Jacobs seems like a very principled guy. Do I like what's happening to the running backs in the NFL? Absolutely not. But at the same time, when he made the statement, I'm gonna take a stand for all running backs. That's a principled statement to the point where, well, if he just shows up and plays week 1, where's the stand? There's no stand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, he's going to lose $10.1 million, and we all saw what happened with Lev Bell. But he seems like he might be a special breed that is that principled. And if you're going to spend at worst a third-round pick on Josh Jacobs, it's going to put you behind the eight ball. And there's a lot of guys I'm comfortable taking. If he fell to me in the late fourth, early fifth, I like to gamble occasionally. But in the third round, there's a lot of guarantees out there that I would not take him over.
Balky Dizzle just published Jacob's phone number in the chat.
No, that wasn't his phone number. That's where Jacobs. That's where he's at on a panic level right now. I take that back, Farrell. It could be his phone number for all that. I don't. Josh Jacobs is not my phone, so I don't know. Josh Jacobs is currently going ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, and Kenneth Walker. So if you don't like Jacobs, trust me, there is another running back in the showroom that might be more attractive for your fantasy football team this year as well. No more attractive a guest can we find, not from a physical, sexual standpoint, Matt. I want to make that ostensibly clear. But no more. No, you are. You're a good-looking guy. But just no more.
Because I have a beard, you're giving,
Yeah, no, don't fall down this rabbit hole. There is no more attractive of a fantasy mind that we can get on a Thursday night than a dude who has won 26 FFPC leagues over the course of his career, won thousands upon thousands of dollars. Matt, you're probably on the clock somewhere, I would imagine, or you're looking to join another league. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Good luck in all your leagues this season. And Dizzle always teases me about this. I love all our guests, but I really want you to bring home that $1 million in the Fantasy Pros Championship and the FFPC.
Me too. Would love it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Matt,
guys, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much.
Good luck to everybody out there this year, and talk to you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the idea. Matt Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, popping aboard the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on a bonus Thursday episode tonight. Hope you all enjoyed it. Farrell, I teased this at the top of the show. The Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship is in midseason form, and why wouldn't you be? Because we are well past midseason as far as drafts go. Slow drafts are popping off. In the main event, you have the Statue of Liberty division drafting Sunday night at 11 o'clock. That'll be the next live league to go. And spots are getting scarce in Cincinnati and Louisville. And I highly recommend that, again, as a guy who's played in – how many times have I played live in Kentucky? I mean, it's got to be almost 20 years. Not 20, but probably 15 plus in Kentucky. You cannot have a better time outside of maybe the FFPC live events in Las Vegas. Kentucky might be right up. Well, I know it's right up there. It might be head-to-head with the FFPC live events. I love it, man. And time's running out to get into those live events.
Well, yeah. And, Balky, our online business has really picked up too. And it's been a good thing. We've sold out a few leagues, and we're trying to push this one out for Sunday. So anyone that doesn't think they can get here live, we would love to have you play late this Sunday evening. And it's all fantasy football is good for fantasy football when we're playing in the FFPC and the KFFSC. It's great prep to get ready to go to Las Vegas and take a shot at that $1 million. I'll remind everyone that our top 5 finishers in our main event get a bid to play in the FFPC every year. We've got some guys going this year that have never been, including a wonderful guy named Rich Bates. Rich is beloved in the KFFSC, and he wants to talk about it every day. It's very exciting, and we've got a month before we get there, but Rich is ready to go. So we're here for the players that want to play, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to it. We're counting down the days. What are we looking at as far as it's the 25th, I think Louisville kicks off. So we're 15 days away from that. As far as Cincinnati goes, we're a week and a half, for God's sake. It is really sneaking up on us. And we're just hours away from the next KFFSC online draft from filling up. We're just hours away, Farrell, from our next episode. I will thank you for joining me tonight, and I will see you tomorrow night, my friend.
That'll be great, Buck.
Absolutely. Farrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Follow him on Twitter at KFFSC Official. I should say Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship on Twitter, KFFSC Official. And, of course, KFFSC.com is where to go to sign up for those leagues right now. I want to thank Matt Stewart, Farrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Rice, each and every one of you. Did you have a great time tonight? I know I did. I don't think I can wait a week to do another show, so let's do another one tomorrow, which is what we're going to do. We're live tomorrow night, 10/9 Central, with the Fantasy Football Mastermind FFPC Pros versus Joes competitor and former multi-league FFPC main event champion, Mike Nazarick. He's going to join the show with myself and Farrell tomorrow night in less than 24 hours. You can, in case you missed it, you can watch tonight's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network on any of the FFPC social media channels with yours truly. And of course, Tom Strachan from Fantasy Pros, Football Outsiders, and the Fantasy Football Sanctuary. Really good stuff from, he was in England tonight, basically doing the show from England. So we had a 2-hour across the pond show, which was a lot of fun to do. You can watch that on demand whenever you like at FFPC, at the FFPC social media channels. What else is going on? Sunday night, we have live main event draft coverage with Aiden LaCorey and Dave Tripoli. That is going on Sunday night. We are going to be live Tuesday night with live Fantasy Pros Championship draft coverage. And I believe we have a RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown coming up next Thursday at 10/9 Central after the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network and, of course, here on the FFPC. And then next Friday, we're going to be doing our annual Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship preview. Guest to be named, but I have a pretty good feeling I know who it's going to be. So that's coming up. Make sure you're liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and getting notified anytime we go live on this channel. And you'll find out who those guests are. Win $1 million in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Win $1 million in the FFPC main event. Fantasy Pros Championship drafts going off in about 49 minutes. We got the midnight draft. I'll be commissioning that. Hope to see you in there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I would say your weekend starts now, but we got another show tomorrow. So your Thursday night starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Sometimes I like to dispense little life lessons tonight. Been a heck of a day for me today. I could not attend my son's fall ball baseball game tonight because of prior commitments with work and everything, which is fine. He understands. It is what it is. I don't know if I shared this, but a few weeks back, my son was brought into his Little League game in an impossible situation. The pitcher before him had already given up a run. He walked the bases loaded. There was nobody out. And my son did the best he could, struck out the first guy, but just fell apart after that. His defense kind of let him down, and he felt like he let his team down after that inning. Only time I've had to console my son who was crying walking off the baseball field. And the coach wanted him to go out and pitch the next inning, and my son said, "There's no way I'm going to do that." And I was like, "Oh, God, I hope this doesn't weigh on him. I hope he goes back on the mound again." Well, I found out from my mom who was at the game tonight, my son did, in fact, go toe the rubber again tonight after his bad experience the last time he was out there, and pitched the shutout inning. Which warms the cockles of my heart, obviously. Life lesson here is no matter what it is, whether it's sports, whether it's fantasy football drafting, whether it's life in general, we all get knocked down from time to time. The key is getting back up. My son got back up tonight. If whatever you're battling with in your life right now, I hope that you dust yourself, you get back up, and you go out and crush it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you tomorrow.